Hi, I'm Robyn Openshaw, and I have a website called GreenSmoothieGirl.com that I put up in 2007. And on it, I tell the story of how 20 years ago, I weighed 206 pounds and had 21 diagnosed diseases. I had been through 6 years of infertility. I'd had every test there is for infertility twice. I'd been through 5 artificial inseminations. I was having mini strokes where my right arm would go numb and I couldn't see or speak for hours. I was on drugs for that. I was on drugs for 4 autoimmune diseases. I had high blood pressure. I was miserable and sick. I slept 10 hours at night, and I was only 27 years old. And I really wanted to be a mother, and I went through all these different medical procedures, and finally I got pregnant with twins. And after a few months, I miscarried one of the twins. And so I was afraid to sneeze because I'd been through so many years of infertility. I basically didn't move for the next 6 months. And when I gave birth to my baby, I was well over 200 pounds. I was losing my eyesight. I had a giant tumor, so many different health problems. When my baby was born, I weaned him when he was 7 months old onto formula and then onto lots of bottles of cow milk and the standard American diet. I was told to do this by my pediatrician. It's what all the other good moms around me were doing. And I fed him chicken nuggets, and I fed him Ben & Jerry's, and I fed him Otter Pops and cinnamon raisin bread. These are our staples. And I didn't know there was anything wrong with this, but my son got very, very sick. And he was in and out of doctor's offices, and he was in emergency rooms and hospitalized. And he was on constant steroids and hormones and antibiotics. When he was 15 months old, they told me that he was a failure to thrive baby. He weighed about 15 pounds when he was a year old. And I was desperate to not lose my baby that I'd spent all these years bringing into the world. And so I was terrified. I was on a Class C drug for my anxiety. I was afraid to fall asleep at night because I was afraid while I was asleep, he would die, because that's how bad his asthma was. Every 4 hours, we strapped a mask to his face to deliver drugs, inhaled drugs. And so I was in a miserable place, 21 diagnosed diseases. My baby was dying. My failure to thrive baby that took me 5 years to get here. And I hated my life. And every day I just fantasized about when can I get back in my bed. Well, I made a discovery when medicine told me that's all we've got for you. And my son was 15 months old, and I realized that all the drugs in the world were not going to make my dying baby well. And I started to wonder if nutrition was part of it. I had watched my grandmother heal of cancer 20 years before when she started drinking all kinds of green juice. And one day I went in my kitchen and I put a bunch of greens in the blender, and I put a handful of alfalfa sprouts, and I blended a bunch of stuff up. And I sat down on the front porch and started drinking it. And my baby, who was a year old, got up out of the grass and walked over and asked me, "What's that?" And I said, "Ice cream." And of course, sorry, he wanted some, and I kept going with that brilliant mom genius, right? And I said, "No, you can't have any, it's mommy's." And then he started begging me for it. And the first green smoothie I'd ever made came to be that day that my son was a year old. And finally, I let him have a little. I was always intending to, and he drank it to the bottom of the cup. And I realized, oh my gosh, I can make whole foods taste good. I can make healthy foods that don't taste yucky. It was the beginning of a mind-blowing experiment where I started eating more whole foods and feeding my family more whole foods. And our lives radically changed. And not only did I ditch over 70 pounds without dieting or counting calories or worrying about how many grams of proteins, fats, and carbs there were, and I go 6 months or a year without ever getting on a scale now. But not only did I ditch all that 70 pounds and all 21 diseases and would become completely drug-free the last 20 years, but also my baby grew up to be a state-level athlete. He led his team to the state playoffs. And in the state playoffs in 4A baseball, he pitched a near shutout. He hit 2 grand slams, threw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. And he led the state of Utah in RBIs, and he's 6'3". So I learned that feeding my family healthy foods was worth the money. It was worth the time, that all we had to give up, all we had to lose was our diagnoses, our loss of energy, our sickness. And so I love sharing that story with people because there's a lot of people who are super desperate to find their way back to health. And they don't realize the connection between the fuel they choose, the food they put in their mouth every day, and the way that they feel. What's been exciting for me is that it's led to a career being able to help others. And I've written 14 books in the last 7 years, and I put up the site GreenSmoothieGirl.com. I've spoken in 450 cities in the last 6 years. And I'm really happy to share my story with you because it's a story of radical change. So I hope that whatever dark place you're in, that you will take a step. Take a step and take another step, and as you get your energy and you get your health back, you continue taking steps, that you really can become healthy again, that you really can overcome your challenges. So I love realimprints.org and the stories they tell here. Thanks for listening to my story today.